The Checkpoint is presented by GM Pharma, the first international multinational pharmaceutical company in Georgia. GM Pharma, to serve those who need it most.
Amid the ongoing war in Iran and the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, fuel prices in Georgia rose significantly during March. Over the months, gasoline prices increased by 15.30 tetri, while diesel prices rose by 37.59 tetri. The National Bank of Georgia decided to keep the refinancing rate unchanged at 8%. According to the NBG, the war in the Middle East has influenced inflation expectations, shifting them toward a higher inflation scenario. However, for now, the bank does not see a need to change the rate. An IMF mission led by Alejandro Heidenberg has begun its visit to Georgia. Meetings have already been held with MBG Governor Natia Turnava, Finance Minister Lasha Khutsishvili and Economy Minister Mariam Krivishvili. The IMF has not yet commented on the progress of the mission, but a concluding press conference is scheduled for April the 7th. TBC Capital, with the support of the National Bank of Georgia, hosted an international capital markets conference. The event was held for the second time and welcomed around 500 guests from Georgia and the region. At the end of February 2026, loans issued by commercial banks reached 71 billion Georgian lari, which is 654 million lari more and higher than at the end of the previous month. According to the National Bank, annual loan growth stands at 14.2%. The main driver of lending growth in February was 530 million Georgian lari increase in loans denominated in lari, while foreign currency loans increased by 124 million lari. The larization ratio improved to 57.78%. In February, the deposit portfolio grew by 1 billion Georgian lari to reach 67.9 billion lari, marking a 1.5% monthly increase. Georgian lari nominated deposits account for 54% of the total, reflecting a 1.41 percentage point improvement in larization. Annual deposit growth reached 18.46%. In February, the National Bank continued accumulating reserves, purchasing a total of $429 million. This is 4 times higher than in January, when purchases amounted to $86 million.
This is The Checkpoints. I'm Elena Kvangelashvili, author and the host of the show, and the Checkpoints team is ready to sum up business and economics week for you. In February, the National Bank of Georgia continued accumulating reserves, purchasing a total of $429 million through Bloomberg's BMatch platform. This marked a 4-fold increase compared to January, when $86 million was acquired. Foreign exchange purchases were the main driver of Georgia's official international reserve growth last month. As a result, total reserves rose by $359 million to reach $6.7 billion. It is currently unknown whether the NBG conducted any reserve sales in March. This information is expected to be released on April 25th. On March 25, 2026, the Monetary Policy Committee of the National Bank of Georgia decided to keep the monetary policy rate, the refinancing rate, unchanged. The monetary policy rate stands at 8%. Heightened geopolitical tensions in the Middle East and substantial disruptions to transit through the Strait of Hormuz have temporarily disrupted traditional supply chains, NBG says. On the one hand, these developments have already led to a marked increase in energy and shipping costs across international markets. On the other hand, if these dynamics persist, they could increase the risk of inflationary processes becoming more broad-based globally. Notably, prior to the escalation of geopolitical tensions, inflation dynamics were broadly in line with the NBG's central scenario, under which inflation was expected to converge to the 3% target from the second quarter of 2026 as temporary factors faded. As expected, headline inflation in February 2026 stood at 4.6%. Importantly, the contribution of food prices to inflation has begun to moderate, while measures of sticky prices and inflation expectations have remained broadly anchored around the target. However, amid ongoing geopolitical developments, NBG says the recent rise in oil prices has already been partially transmitted to the Georgian market and is expected to put upward pressure on headline inflation in March. Accordingly, under the NBG's updated assessment, inflation is expected to be higher than in the central scenario in the short term. However, over the medium term, NBG says that the projected path of inflation largely depends on the intensity and persistence of global inflationary pressures, which remain subject to considerable uncertainty. According to the Monetary Policy Committee's assessment, the situation has shifted from the latest published central scenario to a high inflation risk scenario, one of the key risks of which envisaged higher oil prices amid escalating geopolitical tensions. Notably, the severity and duration of inflationary pressures on the Georgian economy stemming from the geopolitical situation will, according to NBG, largely depend on how these processes evolve going forward. It is also important to note that despite recent developments, the sovereign risk premium indicator for Georgia has remained broadly stable at low levels, which in turn helps mitigate the impact of the external shock. At this meeting, the Monetary Policy Committee also discussed high and low inflation risks relevant to the current situation. Specifically, sustained high levels of energy prices would raise shipping and production costs globally, generating additional supply-side shocks. Under conditions of successive shocks, the risk of second-round inflationary effects also increases. In response to these developments, central banks in advanced economies may adjust monetary policy toward a tighter stance, which in turn could trigger capital outflows from emerging economies. Taking these factors into account, the risks of important inflation in Georgia are expected to rise. Should these risks materialize, fundamental processes would necessitate a higher trajectory for the monetary policy rate. On the other hand, there are also signs of the realization of low inflation risks. In particular, inflationary pressures, according to NBG, arising from geopolitical factors could be temporary if disruptions in the Strait of Hormuz are resolved relatively quickly and supply from other oil-producing countries increases, energy prices may decline sharply from their peaks. Moreover, if Georgia's sovereign risk premium remains low for an extended period, the external balance could further improve, exerting downward pressure on inflation. The realization of low inflation risk would imply the possibility of easing the monetary policy stance. As a result of the ongoing macroeconomic analysis and consideration of existing risks, the MPC considered it optimal to leave the monetary policy rate unchanged at 8%. Amid heightened uncertainty, the NBG will continue to actively monitor ongoing developments and the intensity of their transmission to the domestic market. If inflationary shocks stemming from the geopolitical situation persist and/or their scale amplifies the risks of second-round effects, the MPC stands ready to maintain the current tight stance for longer than expected and, if necessary, to tighten it further. The next meeting of the Monetary Policy Committee will be held on May 6, 2026. What was new in the economy this week in our brief overview?
Despite global challenges, Georgia's economy continues on a stable growth path with strong results exceeding expectations. Prime Minister Irakli Kobakhidze stated at the 51st International Conference of Banking Association for Central and Eastern Europe between 2021 and 2025, Georgia recorded an average real GDP growth of 9.3%. Kobakhidze highlighted the strong international confidence in Georgia's economy, noting that this year's Eurobond issuance was oversubscribed by 5.5 times. He also priced the conference as a key platform for showcasing Georgia's banking sector and fostering discussions vital for financial stability, economic growth, and risk management in the region. The resilience of our economy sets us apart globally, and the high demand for our Eurobonds demonstrates the strength of belief in Georgia's economic future, Kobakhidze added. Tbilisi City Hall has expanded its program for replacing damaged buildings in Old Tbilisi. According to Deputy Mayor Giorgi Tremaladze, the municipality is currently working on several dozen projects in historic districts where building conditions require special approaches. The program has two directions. In non-historic areas, dangerous buildings will be replaced with newly constructed residential blocks. In historic areas, due to the strict urban and volume restrictions, the city will use a buyout model. This means the municipality will purchase buildings rather than rebuild them directly. Tremaladze explained that buyout in Old Tbilisi will be conducted at market value with owner agreements and property assessment carried out by the National Bureau of Expertise, Samkharauli. After purchasing the properties, the City Hall will offer these sites to investors under the same existing urban parameters. The Deputy Mayor emphasized that the goal is not profit but safer living conditions and preservation of historic urban order. He added that several cases are already in progress and that within a few months the municipality will be able to publicly discuss specific properties involved in the program. From April 1, electric prescriptions for psychotropic medication in Georgia will follow updated regulations. Adults will be prescribed a minimum 14-day supply, while minors can receive up to 30 days. Refills are allowed only when the patient has 5 days or less remaining. Daily doses must not exceed the maximum limit specified in the medication institutions, and any prescription must be justified based on the patient's medical history. The rule also covers situations where medication are lost, damaged, or destroyed. The changes aim to prevent previous violations where psychotropic drugs were prescribed without proper justification, diagnostics, or consultation, sometimes in excessive doses or by unauthorized practitioners. The Professional Development Council has already held 10 medical professionals accountable for such breaches. The Ministry of Health emphasizes that strengthening oversight over psychotropic drug prescription remains a top priority to reduce risks and ensure safe medical practice. The number of live births equaled 37,867 in 2025, registering a 4.1% decrease from the previous year, according to the preliminary data from the National Statistics Office of Georgia. In 2025, the largest number of live births were recorded in Tbilisi, 14,000, while the smallest in Rajalekhumi and Kvemo Svaneti region, 191. Compared to 2024, in 2025, the share of first order births in total live births increased from 35% to 36%. The share of second child decreased and equaled 32%, while the share of third and next order births remained also unchanged and equaled 29%. In 2025, the number of deaths increased by 0.8% in annual terms and total 44,319 persons. The largest number of deaths was recorded in Tbilisi, while the smallest in Rajalekhumi and Kvemo Svaneti region. According to 2025 data, the negative natural increase was stated in Georgia, equaling minus 6,452. A negative natural increase was registered in all regions except Tbilisi, Ajara, and Kvemo Kartli. Minister of Environment Protection and Agriculture David Tsongulashvili met with apple producers and exporters to introduce a new sectoral council within the ministry. The council will meet monthly under a deputy minister and hold quarterly sessions chaired by the minister. Its goal is to identify challenges, share updates, and provide targeted support to the apple sector. Tsongulashvili stressed the strategic importance of apple for both domestic consumption and exports. Rural meetings with farmers will help us anticipate challenges and respond effectively, he said, noting that the council format will improve development programs across Georgia agriculture. Apple production in Georgia has steadily increased, primarily in Shida Kartli, with Mtskheta, Tianeti and Kakheti also contributing. In 2025, exports reached around 20,600 tons, valued at 14 million USD, with key markets including Russia, Turkey, Armenia and Kazakhstan. The meeting was attended by Deputy Ministers Lasha Dolidze and Lasha Avaliani, along with the senior ministry officials.
The 2025 World Happiness Index has been released, ranking countries based on multiple factors, including inequality, social support, GDP per capita, life expectancy, freedom, generosity, perceived corruption, positive and negative emotions, charitable giving, volunteerism, and helping others. Finland tops the index, while Georgia ranks 91st. The top 10 is dominated by Nordic countries and other relatively wealthy nations, but the ranking does not strictly follow GDP per capita. Some countries with limited freedoms or unstable political conditions are ranked surprisingly high, such as Russia 62nd and Libya 77th, despite Libya's ongoing post-civil war instability. Georgia is also behind several Central Asian countries, including Tajikistan 87th, Kyrgyzstan 73rd, Uzbekistan 51st, and Kazakhstan 40th. Neighboring countries' positions are Armenia 86, Azerbaijan 104th, Turkey 92, and Ukraine 109. According to preliminary data from Geostat, Georgia's economy expanded by 7.5% in 2025. The country's GDP reached $104.6 billion, approximately $38 billion, and GDP per capita surpassed the $10,000 threshold for the first time, reaching $10,296. The fastest growing sector was information, communication, and IT, which surged 28.7%. In absolute terms. This sector's GDP was 7.4 billion lari, placing it fourth in size among all sectors. The education sector recorded the second highest growth at 24.5%, followed by the financial sector with 12.9% growth. However, some sectors saw a decline in activity. These include mining and quarrying 3%, agriculture 5.7%, and energy minus 4.5%. These figures might signal Georgia's shift toward high-value service sectors, while traditional industries faced contraction last year. Bank of Georgia and Lion Finance Group CEO Archil Gachechiladze says the group's technological transformation is built around a customer-centric strategy and the goal to simplify services as much as possible. In an exclusive interview with TV program Business Course, he noted that a significant share of customer interactions is already automated, with the bank's chatbot fully handling about 65% of all conversations. According to Gachechiladze, maintaining service quality remains a top priority despite the rapid shift toward automation. He highlighted that the bank's customer satisfaction rate for chatbot interactions has reached 93%. He emphasized that digital services, once considered an innovation, are now a baseline requirement, and the next stage is the extensive integration of automation and artificial intelligence. The CEO explained that the bank's back office continuously works on process automation to save customers time and improve overall experience. One recent example is the automated invoice scanning feature in the mobile app, which recognizes payment details and fills in all fields automatically, requiring the user only to review and confirm. Gachechiladze added that similar efficiency-driven innovations will continue. He stressed that employee engagement remains essential, as many of the most effective technological improvements originate from within the team itself. Lion Finance Group is a banking group listed on the London Stock Exchange. It unites leading customer-focused, digitally accessible universal banks, including Bank of Georgia and Ameria Bank. With its inclusion in the FTSE 100, the Bank of Georgia now stands alongside major global brands such as HSBC, BP, Unilever, Rolls-Royce, Shell, Barclays, and others. The group first listed on the London Stock Exchange in 2006 and entered the FTSE 250 in 2012. This spring, Lion Finance Group has officially entered the FTSE 100 index, marking the first time a Georgian company has joined the list of the 100 largest and most influential firms traded on the London Stock Exchange. According to Archil Gachachiladze, General Director of Bank of Georgia and CEO of Lion Finance Group, this milestone will significantly enhance Georgia's visibility among global investors and unlock new opportunities for Georgian businesses. In an interview with BMG, Gachachiladze emphasized that FTSE 100 inclusion dramatically increases investor interest in the region. When a company from Georgia is represented in an index like this, investors across England, America, or Asia begin studying this story. To analyze the index composition, they must understand Georgia's economy and the regional environment. This inevitably drives them to make an active decision about whether to invest. Explained that asset managers benchmark their performance against indexes such as the FTSE 100. As a result, even investors previously unfamiliar with Georgia will be obliged to assess Lion Finance Group and consequently the Georgian market. Some may choose not to invest in Lion Finance and invest elsewhere instead, but that's difficult because we are a fast-growing company with a relatively low PE ratio compared to British firms. Investors will need to study Georgia's economy and the region. This forms a foundation that benefits all Georgian companies looking to raise capital or list shares in London. Gachachiladze added that the number of institutional investors familiar with Georgia is now set to expand substantially. According to Gachachiladze, if previously 30 investors needed an introduction to Georgia, soon it will be 100 or even 200 funds that already understand the Georgian economy. This creates an important opportunity for Georgian companies to attract additional capital or increase liquidity, Gachachiladze says. Following its expansion into Armenia, Bank of Georgia is exploring the acquisition of other foreign banks. CEO of Bank of Georgia and Lion Finance Group, Archil Gachachiladze, told TV program Business Course in an exclusive interview discussing the group's international growth strategy and priorities. Gachachiladze said the bank is actively reviewing opportunities in the Baltics, Southern Europe, and Central Asia to acquire universal banks. If a suitable opportunity arises, they are ready to consider it and make a competitive offer. It is described the 2024 acquisition of Armenia's leading financial institution, Ameriabank, as a success, noting it has achieved the highest growth within the Lion Finance Group. Gachachiladze also shared that the group participated in a bid for the former HSBC subsidiary in Malta, but lost to another bank that offered a higher price. We continue to seek acquisition opportunities for banks in Eastern Europe, Southern Europe, and Central Asia. Gachachiladze says we're looking for banks that are significant for the local economy and have a substantial customer base. Our strategy is to be a top player in smaller markets rather than a minor player in large ones. Gachachiladze adds the philosophy behind our growth remains the same. Publicly, it is known that 70% of the HSBC subsidiary in Malta was acquired by Greek Kredia Bank for 200 million euros. According to the National Bank of Georgia, total bank lending reached 71.06 billion lari at the end of February 2026, up 654.6 million lari, which is 0.93% growth from the previous month and marking a 14.2% annual increase. Excluding exchange rate effects, lending grew by 1.32% month-on-month. The main driver of February's growth was loans in Georgian lari, which increased by 530 million lari, while foreign currency loans rose by 124 million lari. As a result, the larization coefficient improved to 57.8%, up 0.22 percentage points from January. For residential legal entities, lari-denominated loans totaled 10.8 billion lari. That's up by 0.81% month-on-month, and foreign currency loans amounted to 20.3 billion lari, up by 0.39% month-on-month. Excluding exchange rate effects, this represents a 1.27% increase compared to January. Household lending also grew, rising 351.5 million lari. That's up by 0.95% in February to 37.2 billion lari, reflecting continued credit expansion in the retail sector alongside corporate lending. In February 2026, Georgia's banking sector deposits grew by 1.03 billion lari, reaching 600.9 billion lari. 67.9 billion, marking a 1.54% increase month-on-month. Excluding exchange rate effects, the growth was slightly higher at 1.92%, according to the National Bank of Georgia's statistics for early March. The share of deposits in Georgian lari reached 54%, reflecting an improvement in larization by 1.41 percentage points compared to the previous month. Over the past year, deposit growth, excluding exchange rate effects, totaled 18.46%. Term deposits increased by 1.22 billion lari, or 4.13%, excluding exchange rate effects, while demand deposits declined by 190.36 million, or 0.09%, excluding exchange rate effects. By the end of February, the larization coefficient of deposits stood at 54.03%. The weighted average annual interest rate on term deposits in February was 7.17%, with lari deposits yielding 9.14% and foreign currency deposits 2.35%, according to the National Bank. What was new in business this week? On to Natia Taktakishvili.
Silk Road Group will begin implementing a $20 million data center project in April. The company's founder, businessman Giorgi Ramishvili, announced at the International Capital Markets Conference. The exit project timeline has not yet been specified. Ramishvili stated that the data center, which has been in the preparation for 2 years, will have a capacity of 2 megawatts and is being developed in partnership with the Telecommunications Corporation Orange. He emphasized that such a certified data center has not been built in the country before. In addition to the data center, Silk Road Group is developing projects in real estate, energy, telecommunications, finance through the $400 million Eurobond program on the London Stock Exchange. The company is actively expanding 5G digital infrastructure, the Batumi Sea Tower project, and planning major energy projects, including a 200 megawatt facility, with further announcement expected soon. Regarding future bond issuance, Ramishvili explained that the company operates in a 5-year cycle, using current funds first and planning to issue new bonds in approximately 3 years, depending on the market dynamics. The dynamic for Georgian real estate from Israel buyers has doubled in the recent weeks. According to Shio Hatzouriani, CEO of Arki, he says Georgia's reputation as a stable and safe investment destination remains strong despite heightened geopolitical tensions in the Middle East. Hatzouriani noted that Israel buyers typically account for about 20% of Arki's sales, but this has risen to roughly 40% over the past 2 weeks, reflecting a clear and measurable trend rather than isolated cases. Interest from Gulf countries is also growing, with brokerage firms actively reaching out to Georgian developers, seeing the country as a safe opportunity for investment and income generation. Regarding property prices, Hatzouriani explained that rising construction costs combined with increasing demand are likely to push prices higher, while exit forecasts are difficult. Demand currently exceeded supply, suggesting further growth in real estate volumes. Restaurant owner and founder of Chveni Guram Baghdashvili says the conflict in the Middle East is directly impacting Georgia's restaurant and hospitality sector. He notes that due to the flight suspension and regional instability, tourist inflows have declined both in Tbilisi and in winter resorts. According to him, decrease in the limited to tourists from the Middle East or the Gulf. European visitors are also reconsidering travel because of the border security concerns. Baghdashvili explains that even minor unrest affects travel destinations, and a military conflict occurring about 1,000 kilometers away significantly heightens caution. He says winter resorts experienced notable financial losses this season, and Tbilisi saw fewer foreign tourists, except for visitors from northern neighboring countries and
resident expats. This decline has directly reduced restaurant occupancy and revenue. Baghdashvili adds that Georgia's association with major regional energy infrastructure such as Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan pipeline further fuels travel concerns. As a result, hotel occupancy remains low and resorts like Gudauri, Bakuriani and Goderzi have suffered economically. He warns that many hospitality business might struggle next year due to the insufficient income from the current season. Agrokiziri founder Beka Gonashvili says state support programs in agriculture and need modernizations to ensure more efficient use of public funds. In some cases, he believes stricter criteria are necessary, especially for large-scale projects. According to him, major agricultural business should first focus on strengthening knowledge and qualification before receiving state funding. Many programs are good, but without updates, they can slow down this sector. Large agro projects require stronger oversight and capacity building, followed by funding, he said. Gonashvili added that access to knowledge is no longer a major challenge. Short-term courses and training can provide farmers with the skills needed before they apply for financial support. Without proper reputation, mistakes in project execution become more likely and accountability becomes difficult. The government has already announced reforms in agriculture support programs. The Rural Development Agency plans to introduce new directions starting in April, aiming to improve efficiency and better address farmers' needs. Georgian bath, body and hair care brand Kashkash is now the exclusive representative of French luxury spa brand Phytomer, announced founder Keto Georgobiani on BMG TV's Women's Narrative. Phytomer, a global leader in maritime-based skincare with 50 years of experience and 75 patents, is recognized for combining sensory pleasure with the clinically proven results. In Georgia, Phytomer products are available in partner spas, including Swiss Hotel Tbilisi, and select items can be purchased through Kashka's online store. The brand primarily targets the B2B segment, focus on spa centers and tourists, while offering select products to retail customers. Clients can enjoy spa treatments and maintain results at home. Our partners' exclusive retail rights provide a competitive advantages, Georgobiani said. Tourists continues to support growth, with Q1 2024 performing positively and high season expectations promising further revenue. Looking ahead, Kashkash plans reorganized expansion, deeper collaboration with international partners, and new spa treatments to strengthen Georgia's premium wellness offerings. Georgian brand Blue Tabla is preparing for international expansion, planning its first physical store in London within 2 or 3 years. The company, backed by $500,000 in investment, already sells via Amazon Global and its international website. UK warehouse now enable next-day delivery through Amazon Prime, boosting sales. The brand aims to promote Georgian cultural heritage and modern design globally while expanding production and product lines. Blue Tabla is also entering European and US market and plans partnership with logistics centers to make its products more accessible. The company recently launched a children's line inspired by Georgian fairy tales alongside its carpet, pillows and blankets. Demand is growing both locally and internationally, and Blue Tabla continues to strengthen its global presence while staying true to its mission of showcasing Georgian artistry and to the world. The first Georgian wine salt brand, Marila, has expanded its production line by introducing a new truffle-infused salt. Founder Vakhtang Batiashvili told BMG TV that the new product is made using Katsiteli wine and real black truffles, giving it a unique aroma and high gastronomic value. Marila's range now includes 7 varieties using Mediterranean salt and premium quarry wines without artificial flavors. Alongside the truffle salt, the brand has also diversified its offering with various dry spices, maintaining its focus on premium natural ingredients. Batiashvili emphasized that the truffle salt adds a rich and distinctive flavor profile, elevating it for culinary applications and gourmet use. Marila is also actively
pursuing international markets. The company will participate in one of the largest global food exhibitions in Barcelona with more than 100,000 visitors. The brand will be featured under the Enterprise Georgia initiative and has already drawn interest from countries including USA, Germany, UK, while its debut in Japan received positive feedback. Summer season booking in Mestia remain low, with only around 20% of rooms reserved so far, according to Sofio Troimiani, co-founder of Hotel Szgedi. Most current reservations come from tour operators, including organized group from China. Troimiani noted that the winter season started poorly due to lack of snow in December and early January, which caused mass cancellations. Once ski slopes opened in mid-January, occupancy recovered to about 80% through road closure continued to affect some days. Tourists visiting Svaneti are mostly mid-budget with a few higher spending travelers. Troimiani emphasized that poor and road conditions and limited infrastructure remain major obstacles for region's tourist development. Compared to Gudauri Bakuriani and Goderdzi, Mestia hosts fewer large-scale events and promotions, which affects hotel occupancy. The hotel has introduced 10% rate increase for package, including breakfast, bringing the price of double room with meals to 230 lari.
The U.S. Embassy in Georgia marked the 34th anniversary of diplomatic relations between the United States and Georgia, noting that on March 24, 1992, the two countries established official ties, laying the foundation for decades of cooperation and partnership. According to the embassy, the United States recognized Georgia's independence in December 1991, marking an important step toward deepening bilateral relations. 34 years ago today, March 24, 1992, the United States and Georgia established diplomatic relations, laying the foundation for the decades of cooperation and partnership between our countries. The United States recognized Georgia's independence in December 1991, and this step paved the way for further strengthening of our relationship. In an address to the American people, the White House noted that this would include opening a U.S. embassy in Tbilisi as soon as possible and supporting Georgia's path toward membership in international financial institutions, the embassy said. And towards the end of our show for today, I will be leaving you off with the next episode of the EU in Georgia series on the ambassadors of the EU member states in Georgia. I like Georgia. I like the diversity of the country. I like the richness of culture, of traditions. I think we are very similar. These are the words of Mateusz Buszowski, ambassador of the Slovak Republic to Georgia. Please meet Ambassador Buszowski. See you next Sunday, but before that, you know what to do. Stay tuned to BMG. It's worth it.
So I come very often here. I like it. I like the atmosphere, I like the vibe and the products. I like people. I enjoy playing tennis, and I'm lucky that I find not only excellent tennis players but also people, and it helped me a lot because it's connecting people, and of course it helps me understand more. We play from 7:30 to 9, so it for some people it's too early, but for me twice a week, 3 times a week is a very good start of the day. My name is Mateusz Buszowski and I'm ambassador of the Slovak Republic to Georgia. I studied for international relations and diplomacy, so in my case it was natural then to join later the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Slovak Republic. I joined the ministry in 2003 and I was posted in Poland, then in Berlin, and in the meantime I was in the headquarters and in the UK for 1 academic year and half a year in Austria. I was offered to be posted to Georgia and I didn't hesitate for a second. So I like the country as such, I like the diversity of the country. I like the richness of culture, of traditions. I think we are very similar. We are very emotional people. We are rather small countries, which also shapes our views on the world. We both produce wine. We have high mountains. So we have a lot of similarities. And I think there is a really friendship and certain affection between the two countries, which is also reflected into famous films. One is Raja My Love, and the earlier one is Interrupted Songs. My focus is on people-to-people relations, deepening people-to-people relations between experts, schools, universities, cities. I think the people are most important. And the second part, which is of course part of this people-to-people contact, is promoting cultural ties. Slovakia and Georgia have a lot of, for example, UNESCO heritage protection sites, and these things that bring us together, that are common to our, should serve as a bridge between the nations. Ertat Sakartvelostris.
The Checkpoint is presented by GM Pharma, the first international multinational pharmaceutical company in Georgia. GM Pharma, to serve those who need it most.